This is Media Philosophy, exploring the deeper side of Disney sequels, which is going to be a huge strategy going forward for Disney. If you go on the Wikipedia page for the upcoming Disney films, you'll see things like Frozen 3, Frozen 4 I think is even on there, a Moana 3 might be on there, Zootopia 2. Either way, they are completely shifting their focus. Not that Disney sequels are a completely new thing. Disney has been creating sequels not since the beginning. I wouldn't say really Walt Disney, at least when it comes to animation, made too many sequels. I would say you started to see the Disney sequels really start to creep into home video, those direct to DVD films. Probably when animation just got a little bit more streamlined with computers. So I would say probably around like the 1990s is when you saw sequels to even more classic animations like The Fox and the Hound, Cinderella, things like that. But again, those were more or less pretty cheap and meant just to go straight to video to try to just cash in on whatever IP that they can. They were a little bit ahead of their time because now that is so normal and so desired from the fan base. But it was a different era when you look at the types of animation that's used now and today. Back during the 2D era of animation, the sequels weren't as simple to pull off, especially if you were trying to do something like Cinderella 2, where the majority of the artists that worked on the first Cinderella are probably not with Disney anymore. I wouldn't be surprised if they're dead, and again, there's already more streamlined processes. But anyways, the problems with 2D animation and sequels back then was that with 2D animation, you're always going to have a blank canvas to start with. Sure, you might know what the character looks like. You might have character Bibles. You're going to have references to draw back on. But nothing exists beyond that frame that is already drawn. Nothing exists out there. The artist themselves has to bring about the illusion of movement through each individual drawings, the hundreds of thousands of drawings that make up a single character, where with 3D animation, you're able to retain your assets from the previous film. So when Disney is making Moana 2, they already have Maui, they already have Moana's model, all that jazz, that they can just reload into the sequel, where again for The Lion King 1.5 or Mulan 2, whatever, they had to still draw each individual frame. The way I like to think about it is when it comes to 2D animation, again, it's a blank canvas. Anything can happen. It's up to the lead animator or the animator of that character to take the lead in a scene and really guide it and really direct it. Sure, they'll have the script. Sure, they'll have the storyboard to reference. But at the end of the day, it's just them and a piece of paper. Whereas 3D animation, I like to think that is more of like a puppet, like some sort of digital puppet where even once the movie is over, you can just set that digital puppet on the shelf, and even if it gathers dust, you can still pop it out, bring it out for the sequel, just like Disney is going to be doing with Frozen 3. Oh yeah, I guess there is a second Frozen already. And this is interesting though that Disney is starting to lean into the sequels again, because in the past they were direct to DVD, direct to home video films, which I would equate quality wise to almost those direct to streaming movies nowadays. They're okay, but they never had the same charm, the same musical prowess as the first original Disney movies. Sometimes there were some gems, but then there were some really questionable ones, like the Atlantis sequel, but there's a sad story behind the Atlantis sequel that might be for another video. But regardless, Disney wasn't able to put the money, time, effort into those sequels because they know they're not going to get the same return as a theatrical release. But then here comes DreamWorks and completely changes the game, because I would say that was DreamWorks' bread and butter, was the sequels. I mean, we got the Shrek franchise, we got the Trolls franchise, we got How to Train Your Dragon, and I'm just scratching the surface. The Bad Guys, I mean, DreamWorks is always coming up with new IP, new franchises to promote, where Disney really hasn't engaged in that sort of practice, especially in the 3D world. It's really strange when you see that the 2D Disney films have so many sequels. There's a second Pocahontas, there's a second Mulan, there's a second Fox and the Hound, there's a second, I mean, almost like every Disney princess, there's a second Little Mermaid, almost every single Disney princess gets some sort of sequel, except until recently, once the transition to 3D happened, you didn't see that many sequels, and I really want to know why that was. Was it just something about tradition? Do they want to just keep pushing out new stories? Because, I mean, I'm not sure exactly when Tangled came out. I want to say probably like 2010 or something. But yeah, in these last 15 years, really, what theatrical release sequels has Disney produced? Not Pixar. Pixar has proved that if you give something enough time and enough effort, you can still make bank. And maybe that's the thing, is that at least when it came with Moana, and I'm pretty sure Frozen, they didn't, maybe because Disney doesn't flood the market with sequels, they are held to more higher regard. I'm not sure. What I'm trying to say is DreamWorks just has so many sequels that come out, and I don't know if they do as financially well. Kung Fu Panda 4 just came out, but then again, I don't think it matters because the cost to produce them is probably much lower compared to the first one, so just keep that money train rolling. And I think that's why Disney is really changing gears, because they just see the way the industry's going. They see what kids want. They want to see the same characters over and over and over and over again, and it's really not hard to blame them. It's almost like risky. It's almost like there's that saying that you can only know so many people in your life. There's some sort of like phrase or like, I don't know. But anyway, you can only really realistically know 100 people in your life. Maybe because we've gotten to the point where entertainment is so saturated and we watch just so many TV shows, movies, whatever, since the dawn of our birth, that now we're just like, we're done. We've already got enough characters. I can't remember them, even if they're fictional. So it would be interesting to see if there is like an upper limit on even fictional characters that we can like. But that's a little different than what we're talking about now. Here's the problem when it comes to kid stuff, I guess, is maybe we just need to stop. The people who are in charge of kids movies needs to stop worrying about what people online are saying about those products, because kids are not going on to Reddit or YouTube to write or make a 2-hour-long video about all the issues with the latest Disney princess film. That's not what they're doing. Kids just are sitting, watching things ignorant of the outside world. I mean, I loved tons of crappy movies when I was a kid, and thank God I didn't have the internet, because who knows what tainted views I would have. There just seemed to be such a big backlash against some of the latest Disney films made in the last, 7 years now. Time just goes by so fast. Things like Strange World or Wish. And I think it was a lot of the adults making a big deal about stuff. And Strange World got accused of being woke during, the most sensitive time for those sort of things. And at the end of the day, it was just a mid-movie. I don't think Strange World, you can't blame the backlash against the wokeness when it was just like an okay movie. But I digress. Again, here I am, an adult talking about a kid movie. I'm part of the problem. Kids should just enjoy what they enjoy. And that's the thing that I think gets missed out on a lot of these box office conversations. Seems like people online or CEOs are so focused on the box office numbers, which is kind of dumb, because historically I would say, especially Disney animation, is sort of a rocky place when it comes to the box office and Disney animation. Sometimes they knock it out of the park, and sometimes it's just okay. And that's just been since the dawn of Disney animation. I mean, what was it? Snow White was one of the first of its kind, and it was a huge success. But then you take this next Disney animation, Pinocchio, which I would say in terms of just quality, story-wise, animation-wise, just everything, Pinocchio is just a million times better than Snow White. But I believe it was a box office disappointment. I wouldn't consider it a bomb, but I think it was a box office disappointment. And then you have major disappointments with things like Fantasia. So I'm just saying that it's not like Disney movies have always been these huge money makers, but instead, what at least Walt Disney found out when he made like Disneyland and everything else is that the real key to Disney is just furthering the universe and the IP, and that when given the opportunity to buy like directed video or Disney Plus, people will eat that up. I remember reading that once Disney, that's what they did. If you're over the age of, I'm going to say probably like 25, you may remember commercials about the Disney Vault. That's how they used to do it. You used to not be able to buy every single Disney movie at any time you wanted to. They would literally take their media and only release it to buy like a DVD or a VHS during very specific time periods, and then it would go back in the Disney Vault, and it was supposed to make everything so exclusive, and it probably worked. I mean, I think that's why some people would call Disney the Nintendo of children's animated media, because they pull things like that. They're very keen on gatekeeping their IP, because let's be real, Mickey Mouse, Mario, Pikachu, I mean, these are some of the most iconic mascots within the entire world. So yeah, if I was Disney, I would be very choosy on where I'm lending my IP. I mean, you used to find Disney movies on Netflix back 20 years ago, 10 years ago, maybe not 20 years ago. Now I'm over-exaggerating how old I am. But still, we got way off of Disney sequels. But the point still stands that the CEO wants to make all these Disney sequels in hopes to chase money, but this might be really short-sighted in the long run. While, yes, big box office draws are attractive, what ultimately gets kids is just the cast. Because kids are going to watch Disney Plus regardless. Families might not go to the theaters, but every time you read up on some movie bombing in the theaters for Disney, you see it just spikes in popularity on Disney Plus. I think that happened with Wish, with Strange World. So people are going to be watching these films. Kids are going to be falling in love with these characters regardless. It's just if you only focus on sequels, that's just going to limit the amount of characters that kids will fall in love with. So we'll see what happens with some of the more traditional IP. If kids still like, I mean, I would imagine kids are still being introduced to like the classic ones like Beauty and the Beast. Oh my god, that had a kind of a sequel, I guess. It's not really a sequel. But I completely lost what I was talking about in this video. I just love talking about Disney. Maybe next time. What's actually funny is I recorded this video once and I thought I did a good job, but I didn't actually hit record on my phone, and this is me trying to like recapture the magic, and I hate redoing things. So hopefully this was somewhat audible, hopefully this was somewhat coherent, but inside I've just been screaming that the first one was better and you ruined everything by not recording. So I'm just gonna have to hold my head up high and say I forgive myself. This is Media Philosophy, exploring the deeper side of entertainment.